We've just gone live to Facebook and YouTube and a couple other places to start the Q&A with Natural Medicine Colorado. We're going to give it a second just to let all the digital dust settle, and then we will go ahead and start it off. For now, for anybody who's here, for us mainly, because nobody's actually viewing yet, but it will be recorded. Mainly for us, I want to just take a second to feel the place where our body meets the earth and the earth meets our body. I always find it amazing how the earth takes whatever burden I give to it. It doesn't matter how heavy my burden is, how much stuff I have going on. If I just surrender my weight to the earth, it's nothing for Mother Earth. So just taking a second to ground and to show up, to feel our body meeting the earth and the earth meeting our body. So this is Psychedelic Club Asks Natural Medicine Colorado. I am Clayton, the president of the board of Psychedelic Club. Psychedelic Club is a chapter-based 501c3 dedicated to changing the cultural narrative on psychedelics, folding them more deeply into the social and cultural mainstream. I'm here today with Kevin and Veronica of Natural Medicine Colorado. I'll have you two introduce yourselves. If you want to just say hi, say who you are.
Veronica, you go first.
Okay. I'm Veronica Lightning Horse Perez. I'm really excited to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I always have a fun time with intros. I fit in a lot of boxes. As far as credentials go, I am a master and trainer of NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, coaching, vibrational sound therapy. There's a bunch of different things I actually do. But what I feel my purpose is just to live a good life, to be happy and learn as much about myself as I can. But my mission is to do as much as I can to serve in any way that I can serve. So that is what I do.
Wonderful. Thank you, Veronica. Kevin?
Hey, Clay, thank you. Veronica, always such a pleasure to see you. It's only been about 12 hours, so we can be had together. Hey, everyone. A real honor and a pleasure to be here speaking with the Psychedelic Club national community. And just a little bit about myself. I've been working in psychedelic policy reform for a little over 4 years now. I currently serve as the president of the Denver Psilocybin Mushroom Policy Review Panel. I'm working on this incredible campaign as a co-designated representative with Veronica. And in terms of Natural Medicine Colorado, I'm also serving as our coalition director for the effort. I currently live out in Arvada, Colorado, with my son and my wife, and just real excited to be here today and finally share a lot more about this work with our community.
Wonderful. Thank you both for being here. I know that we all have a lot of roles and a lot of pieces of our identity, but I want to acknowledge the fundamental human identity that we share. And thank you both for showing up here as humans outside of all of the characters before or after our name or the titles that we hold. There's a fundamental human fire that I really feel connects all of us in the psychedelic community and the psychedelic work, whether we're somebody who's just heard of psychedelics for the first time and is starting our adventure, or somebody who's deep in the movement and deep in the community. There's that thread of a shared fire that connects all of us. So I want to acknowledge that thread in both of you, Kevin and Veronica. Acknowledge your humanness, and thank you from my heart for showing up to this work and showing up to this talk, this little digital space that we get to share. It's really nice sharing space with both of you right now. So we've got a lot of questions. We've got a series of questions that have been submitted from our various community members. We circulated a form prior to the event through which people have been submitting questions. We've got about 17 of them. I don't know if we'll be able to get through all of them, but we'll dive in and just do our best. So if you're both ready, we'll move on to the first question. Many of them were submitted anonymously. That will be the case unless I specify otherwise. So the first anonymous question is, what is the Natural Medicine Health Act?
I'll jump in there first to answer that one. And by the way, fair warning, I've got 2 rugrats in the house right now, so I may get called into Papa duty briefly. So if I jump off screen, fair warning. So the Natural Medicine Health Act of 2022 is a statewide ballot measure that's going to fully remove criminal penalties for the personal use of natural medicines and also create a state regulated access program for those natural medicines. And we're defining natural medicines as DMT, ibogaine, mescaline, not including peyote, psilocybin, and psilocin. And in terms of the regulated access model, that's so individuals can receive services at licensed healing centers, in the comfort and safety of their own home, or in healthcare or other locations like palliative care centers, and receive those services by trained facilitators. Um, and I mean, to me, really, so much of this work that we're creating with the Natural Medicine Health Act just balances the rights of folks to work with these medicines privately and in community, and also in considering um, making them accessible to as many people as possible here in Colorado in safe and structured settings.
Amazing. Sounds very exciting. Thank you for that. Veronica, do you have anything to add before I move on?
No, not too much. That's about perfect. This is a big opportunity. I see this as a big opportunity for a chance to have different choices, and that's a big deal.
Beautiful. I do want to mention, as a part of Psychedelic Club's 501c3, that this is not an endorsement of any political campaign or initiative, that this is an inquiry. So any ideas expressed here are not necessarily endorsed by the Psychedelic Club as a 501c3. This is the intention of this talk is inquiry. So that being said, we'll move on to the second question. This was also submitted by an anonymous person. What is your core intention for doing this work?
My core intention is to do just that. Choice. We do have a certain point where what we're doing isn't working. And at that point in time, having new choices, bringing new information in, learning new things is exactly what we have to do. Otherwise, we tend to follow a wheel round and around and around and get the same result. So my core intention is really to bring offering, to bring awareness is what I feel that I'm here for, of just a lot of different thoughts from a lot of different paradigms, and especially for a lot of people that are barely shifting out of this is an illicit drug into this is a medicinal substance. The look on people's faces when they are able to move into that next step, or talking to people and, oh my God, I know someone who's done this and this is amazing, this has changed their lives, that really lifts me up. And the more people that have that opportunity to know people or have that experience or get new information into their boxes so that they can come to a new analysis, it's just such an amazing opportunity. It's such a cool thing to be a part of.
Amazing. Thank you, Veronica.
For me personally, I have a 7.5-year-old son. I really want him to come of age in a world where it's normal and accepted for people to use these medicines to heal, and to use these medicines to explore their consciousness and, find more insight, more creativity. And I think going along with that, a big part of my hope is that the work that we're doing here can create a more compassionate world, and where we can get into the details of how to make this a better place. I'm not saying that psilocybin or natural medicines are a panacea by any stretch of the imagination. But I feel like there's a lot of potential here to create some really tremendous positive change, and that the work we're doing is, one small aspect of the broader growth and transformation that I think many of us would like to see here in Colorado and, globally.
Compassion, alignment with truth, transformation. They sound like very noble goals, and I appreciate you sharing them with us. So the next question, also submitted anonymously. We're just going to keep going because we've got a lot of them. So we're just going to sort of move through here. The bill says recreational use will still be illegal. what does recreational use mean and how is it defined? Is sacramental use recreational? Couldn't ecstatic states of bliss be considered therapeutic? And is personal use the same as recreational?
Thanks, Clay. Yeah. We'll just like switch off here. We'll
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say that the measure doesn't actually include the word recreational. It doesn't show up even once in the language. But I hear the intent, I think, of this question. What the measure does say, especially when it comes to personal use, is that personal use does not include the sale of natural medicines for remuneration. And what that means is that recreational sales of medicines are not allowed. Personally, I think that, just from my own experience, using psilocybin in many different contexts, it has the potential to be therapeutic, whether it's in the comfort and safety of your own home, whether, you're on a hike, whether you're doing something like that outside of a therapeutic or structured setting. I think the word therapeutic is a very accessible word to a lot of people. And I don't think it necessarily, fully captures the full spectrum of what's possible in terms of healing and transformation with this medicine.
And this is really getting into that awareness and choice, because we got to have choice. Everybody heals in a different way. Somebody might need to go dancing and get healing from that. Somebody needs to go to nature. Intention is huge, my personal belief with this medicine, but so is respect. But I've also met the medicine and spoken with the teacher enough times, because for me, these are plant teachers, enough times to know that they're going to show you what you need to be shown. They are being, that spirit is coming into you and is letting you see, bringing clarity. Integration afterwards is key. You set and setting is key, because that is that intention. Is that, are you going into this for healing of PTSD? Are you going into this to just better connect to yourself? Are you going into this for a closer perspective with spirit? That intention is important, but integration afterwards, to go back and to reflect and to discuss and to journal or paint, or however it is that you integrate upon that experience, so that you can get the gift of that journey that you've just taken with that plant. That's why we call it sacrament, many of us. I do want to say that, as I am of mixed Indigenous ancestry, I am speaking from my perspective. I am not speaking for Indigenous people or Native people. If I say something that resonates with anyone that is listening, I invite you to use that. And if it does not, please feel free to dismiss what does not apply.
Thank you for that, Kevin, Veronica. It sounds like the definition of therapeutic is a little more broad or vague, that it could potentially include experiences that are recreational. I know many of us have stumbled, it's the story of an escapist intention meeting a therapeutic outcome is not unheard of. And I suppose the other is also true. So it will be interesting to see how that unfolds personally and collectively. The next question is kind of along the same lines. What protections, if any, does the initiative have in place for the personal use of medicine?
I think for this one, it's just really helpful to reference the language. Goodness gracious. So possessing, using, storing, processing, purchasing, obtaining, ingesting, growing, cultivating, and sharing natural medicines for personal use, and assisting other people in private settings in the context of counseling and spiritual guidance, and community-based use and healing would no longer be an offense under state law. Going along with that, the possession of any amount of natural medicines does not constitute like reasonable suspicion of a crime. And they also cannot be seized, harmed, or destroyed by law enforcement. And really encourage folks to read that personal use section of our language, because it goes into a lot of detail, and we've given just really a tremendous amount of thought, a lot of feedback from lots of members of our community in terms of crafting that part of the initiative. And I think we go a really long way to ensure that individuals' personal rights here are protected.
Hmm. Thanks for that specific language. It seems like a really deep concern for people. And in fact, the next question is also about personal use. There might even be a couple more. This question is, will DORA, the Department of Regulatory Affairs, the Colorado Department of Regulatory Affairs, will they be able to regulate personal use?
So DORA does not have statutory authority on this matter. The only authority that they would have with the Natural Medicine Health Act is to create, along with the Natural Medicine Advisory Board, create the regulations for implementation of the actual access program. If folks look at our language, and you can go to naturalmedicinecolorado.org, in the upper right-hand corner, you can read the language there. On page 8 of the measure, there's a section I where it says that DORA, which again is the Department of Regulatory Agencies, may adopt, amend, and repeal rules as necessary to implement the Natural Medicine Access Program only. So DORA cannot make changes to the personal use provisions of the measure.
That's really good to know and really specific. Thanks for being so on that.
You're welcome. Yeah, it matters. This is important.
It absolutely matters.
Where this is critical.
Yes.
So it's really, Thank you, Clay.
Yeah. So the next question that we have comes from our University of California, San Diego chapter. I want to shout out to Zane, the organizer of that chapter, for bringing people together, bringing psychedelic community together there in San Diego at the University of California. So the question from that chapter is there any reason for not including some of the lysergamides and LSA in this bill? Is there some concern about production of LSD or health concerns? Also, would there be any protection for analogs based on natural product scaffolds like LSD, 2CB, 4-ACO, DMT, etc.?
Should I jump in again there?
Go ahead.
All right. Okay, well, and I love that this question is coming from our friends and allies and community in California, because they have Senate Bill 519 that was tabled last year. I think it's being considered again. I'm not quite sure what's happening with that. And listen, like with the Natural Medicine Health Act, we're focused on naturally occurring medicinal plants and fungi, right? Back when we were advocating early on in Denver, 3-4 years ago, we knew that we had to work to kind of work to rebrand the perception of psychedelics, psilocybin in particular, away from the stigma of the 60s and 70s. And I think we've been successful in some parts with that effort. And LSD is kind of like kryptonite politically right now. It brings up or has the potential for a lot of folks to bring up just kind of that reminder of like Timothy Leary era, psychedelic use in the country. So we're focused on natural medicine, and to answer the question directly, it's not going to have any protections for analogs as well.
Thank you for that. It seems like a skillful move to focus on natural medicines. It is a bit of a kryptonite or time bomb. There's just so much baggage attached to the LSD phenomenon, even more than the psychedelic phenomenon itself. It's we're going to need some more additional untangling in the future as this movement progresses.
And I think we have to remember how humans are. It's when something is new, we tend to go cautiously and we tend to go fearfully. If something we have a very specific picture in our head of snakes, and somebody might tell us this particular snake is dangerous, but it looks a hell of a lot like a snake that I once knew that was dangerous. There's a lot of concern there. I've got to get used to this snake and realize that this guy is not dangerous. I got to get used to this horse and realize this size horse is not dangerous before I moved up to a bigger horse, and so on and so forth. We do get comfortable as humans in stages. And as Kevin was saying, we do remember where we're coming from and where we're going. Natural plant medicines is such a beautiful way to meet something that I believe our bodies are already familiar with and remember to some degree, so we can, my mother got kicked by a little horse. and she was afraid of little horses, and they brought her a little tiny little horse, and it's like, no, I'm still afraid of that, but it's half the size. How can it hurt you? It took her a while to get used to that and then build back up. And now she's much more willing to be even around larger horses. And I hope someday that she'll ride, because it's a beautiful experience.
Yeah. It's a bit like a collective psychedelic exposure therapy that we're doing with the society. It is a collective, okay, that was very
Right.
scary, but what about this? Maybe we could handle it in this little thing, in this package. Like, here you go. It's like, yeah, exposure and response prevention therapy for the psychedelic world. So the next question that we have is from the Denver chapter. They ask, is it true that this initiative would allow a single facilitator to own up to 5 centers? What's the purpose of that? And how does it benefit individuals over corporate interests?
Yeah, it's a great question. So to get specific again with that, with the language, Dora would need to make rules that prevent an individual from, oh, just saw something in the chat there. Coming back, Dora would need to make rules that would prevent an individual from having a financial interest in more than 5 healing centers. In this context, an individual can also be a business entity. And really the purpose of that was to help prevent corporate monopolization here in Colorado. We can make the assumption that there are some larger organizations that exist across the country who, may want to come into the state and take advantage of, of this opportunity here. And so that was one way for us just to attempt to, to minimize the potential for, large actors coming in and dominating. And I really think that my hope really is that, this measure is really going to inspire the local economy, and where folks are going to have an opportunity to get involved with this work, whether it's as a facilitator or opening a healing center. And so much of that work is going to come down to when we're working on implementation.
That's really interesting. I heard that part of the initiative spoken about in the context of like, wow, 5 is a lot for an individual, but it's not that much for a large corporation. So this actually, you're saying it actually functions as a limiter, as a cap.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Where it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can only have 5. Is there I'll just add a personal curiosity to that. Is there a limit to how big the centers can be?
It's a great question. Again, implementation and rulemaking. And that's why it's going to be so critical for members of our community to get involved in that process. Really my hope is that when this Natural Medicine Advisory Board is convened, like, we're going right back to the people who've been involved with this work for over a year now, and really go to our legacy folks, go to our folks who carry this institutional knowledge, this generational knowledge, to figure out what are these possibilities for what could work.
It sounds like there are lots of vagaries and lots of possibility in the things that are as of yet to be defined and as of yet unknown. I want to throw a question from the chat in there because I think it's interesting. The DMT part of the initiative does include 5-MeO DMT, 5-MeO NN, or is it only NN DMT?
It does not specify 5-MeO or NN. It just says
Okay, so that could theoretically or plausibly include 4-ACO and NN, but it's containing plants, or is it the extracted compound?
So the way that it works, the way that we approached this was looking at what's currently Schedule 1 in the state of Colorado, and I have to go back and triple check, but they specifically reference dimethyltryptamine as a controlled substance.
Yeah, curious about that. Thanks for going into that a little bit more there. I just wanted to give, there's a quick message in the chat that I was curious about. So the next question is from the Denver chapter. It's a little bit longer, so let's see. It says, the campaign's issue committee page on the Colorado Secretary of State website shows the Natural Medicine Health Act has received nearly $1 million from New Approach in the past 2 months in order to fund the signature collection piece of the campaign. The New Approach is an out-of-state PAC and is challenging to find any information about where their money comes from. Why does an out-of-state organization have such an interest in Colorado, and what are they expecting in return for such a huge investment of money?
I'm stealing the show here, V. Do you want to take a stab at this one?
Yes. So, the New Approach people, I have actually met the New Approach people. The organizers and the people that are really interested, they have a goal, and their goal is they want to be able to do as much as possible in working with the harm and in drug policy, doing everything that they can, hopefully eventually to the point where we don't have a drug war anymore. Like, that is their intent. That is what they want to do. Here in Colorado, we are working on this, to meet people and express an interest back. This is, I hear the concern. I really do. I hear the concern. The people that I have met and spoken to that are that have given monies towards this, and they feel very much like I do if I buy somebody's groceries at the grocery store or somebody's meal when we're out and about. I don't want that attention. I don't want you to know that I did that. Two of them, they have had experiences with psilocybin themselves that were profound for them. So they want to help. And this is a state in which we are actively working on a ballot measure. So this is an opportunity to help. I have not seen strings. I've been looking for strings because I was introduced to these guys through a grassroots measure. And for a long time, I lived in a place where I didn't have money. I was a single mother of 3, homeless there for a while. And if anybody was going to give me anything, my first thought was, what do you want back for it? Nobody gives something away for free. And in my career, call it specialized therapist, call it healer, call it whatever you want. I've been invited into the worlds of more than, I don't even know, 13, 14, maybe 1,500 people over the course of the years, and all the different perspectives from all over the world, all different socioeconomic backgrounds. I've worked with wealthy individuals, somebody that owns hospitals, people that own massive amounts of gas stations, all of these different things. And for them to go slap down, $8 million on a beach house is nothing. So, throwing $500,000 the way of what they perceive to be a good cause is nothing. I am speaking to what I know. But I encourage people to do their research, ask the questions. I get it.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a really incredible and unique perspective that you have, and I appreciate you sharing with it. It feels like people are just generally afraid and protective of what is viewed as a sort of nascent grassroots movement that's been incubated for a long time. So the fear that somebody who has not been a part of that movement might come in and hijack it with money, I think seems like a collectively shared fear that a lot of people have. And perhaps it's reactive to even ask the question, but it does seem like there's a little bit of that going on. So I appreciate you, Veronica, answering that question and helping assuage some of the curiosity, fulfill some of the curiosity, and give us that perspective behind those doors that we may not otherwise get to see behind.
Hey,
Kevin,
yeah, I was going to ask you if it's cool if I just added one more thing there.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Yeah, thank you. I really think it's important for folks to understand that a majority of those funds that have come into the issue committee are going right back out into our community. We're paying people to collect signatures for this effort. There's folks right now today, as we're doing this, as we're sharing this, who are hitting the street, having conversations with strangers, supporting this work. And I know it doesn't always look perfect, and it hasn't looked perfect here in the last 6 weeks since we've been collecting. But consider that in many ways we're providing job security and benefits for folks right now, especially in what may be construed as like challenging financial times for many folks. And this is an issue that I was speaking with a gentleman at City Park a couple weeks ago who was before he was working with our campaign, he was know, throwing boxes at an Amazon warehouse. Now he gets to be outside having conversations about natural medicines with people. He's very passionate about and excited about. And in terms of new approach, like, why wouldn't they be interested in Colorado? I mean, we birthed the grassroots movement here 3 years ago in Denver. I may be a little bit biased, but I think we have the most robust, committed, experienced, and intelligent psychedelic community here in this country. And you know what? Coloradans, I firmly believe, really need this right now. Um, as a state, and folks have heard me say it before, this is data that comes from Mental Health America. Every single year, they provide the results of basically surveying and ranking states in the country. Colorado's the worst state in the country right now, 2022, in terms of adults who are experiencing mental health issues. The highest number of adults who are experiencing mental and behavioral health issues, and we have the lowest rates of access to mental health care in other states. So, um, the socio-political circumstances made this an ideal climate. And I think the focus here is that we have an opportunity to really do the best job we can with the resources and the experience and the people that we have to just set some really positive precedent for this work moving forward.
And a little devil's advocate on that. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, somebody had a strength. They had a personal interest in this passing here. It is why from community that the 5 cap for healing centers was put in there. If somebody's got money and wants to come in here and open healing centers, they can. 5 throughout the state. And that's the max you're going to be able to do. So, like, we did take a lot into account and listen to a lot of different voices on this, because it's a valid fear. It's happened in the past. Humans are very good about learning from their past. They're very good at getting stuck in their past too, but they're very good at learning from their past. So we had as much foresight as was humanly possible with the community that we were working in. And we did have a lot of voices speaking to this. And this has been, a concern for a lot of people for quite a while, which is why we decided to even have this conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate both of you contributing there and letting us know where you stand and what goes on. I think it's helpful for people to hear. I hope that there's some curiosity satisfied, at least. And again, just deep gratitude for even being willing to have this conversation. It's a difficult place to be in, to have a bunch of people ask you questions. And there are only 3 of us in the room, but there are a bunch of us, a bunch of people involved who have submitted these questions. So again, just gratitude for being in the position that you're in and allowing us to inquire about the bill. So the next question does come from Denver as well. It says, in one of the My Coalition meetings, New Approach Representative Ben Unger, who asked who's involved with New Approach, was asked who's involved with New Approach. His answer was a couple of people. When this question was posed again later, David Bronner chimed in saying that Graham Boyd, which everyone already knows, and he gave the names of 2 dead gentlemen, another meaningless answer. Why is New Approach evading answering who's involved with the organization? It sure makes it seem like they're trying to hide something, that there's something there they don't want the public to know.
Yeah, I mean, the infamous town hall meeting. I was sitting next to Ben when that question was asked of him, and I remember him being very clear and direct about who's involved with New Approach. He said it's 4 people, and it's 4 people. We know it's Graham Boyd, right? He's the executive director. Ben Unger is the psychedelic policy director, and then 2 incredible women, one of whom is their attorney, and the other of whom is their chief of staff, who, by the way, is a Denver resident. So, from my experience, it seems like Ben has answered the question and been very open with folks, when asked, like, who's involved with New Approach, who's on the team.
Thank you for that, for answering that long question about the My Coalition meeting. The next one is about the petitioners, also from Denver. So they say, I live downtown and I'm asked to sign the petition for 58 daily. This is Natural Medicine Health Act. After a month in the field, signature collectors are still unable to demonstrate a basic comprehension of what is in the proposal while asking for signatures. A signature collector told me yesterday that I would need to return to school to become a licensed therapist or doctor to continue providing psychedelic sitting services. So it sounds like somebody who's already practicing potentially underground. How can you ensure that Colorado's model will be fair and equitable if basic details about this initiative cannot be accurately relayed to prospective voters?
Okay, so I don't disagree. We are working on training. We are working on training, but the difference is you're getting information from somebody who is taking an hourly job versus people who will be applying to be on the advisory board who are highly educated, who have been in this space for a long time. 15 people that we are looking for experience everywhere, you know, from medicine keepers to I actually have someone who's going to apply who is a nurse, a psychedelic nurse. um, I hear you on that, whoever asked the question. Thank you for answering the question. It is something that we are absolutely working on. It is a difficult thing to try to train large amounts of people. I am a trainer myself, and I like to cap my groups out at 22 max, because when you have bigger groups than that, you know, let me just tell you a story. I have 5 children, and I sat them all down at the table one time and I told them a story. And at the end of the story, I asked them, hey guys, like, what'd you learn from that? And I got 5 different answers. I'm not saying that this is okay. You know, we just had another conversation. We are auditing trainings. We are moving into creating our own volunteer training that we're going to be doing very soon. Thank you. We're aware, we're working on it, and we're doing the best that we can. And it is getting better and better. It's not there yet, I admit.
And we really want folks to, if they're having these types of interactions with our signature collectors, you know, Veronica and I are very open. You know, we do want to hear this type of feedback, because then we can relay it to our campaign manager, and our other folks we're working with, and you know, continually make these adjustments as we go to make sure that the folks who are doing this on an hourly basis are better representing work. Reach out to us. We want to hear this feedback. It's a huge list that we've sent to our trainers too. So
Yeah, and we can't work on something when we're not aware of its existence. So, you know, thank you.
Sure. Thank you for that. It sounds like a difficult logistical situation to solve. And this field is so complex. There's so many pieces to it. I mean, even somebody who's been interested in this phenomenon for a decade doesn't hold all the pieces or all the understanding, or isn't always able to produce from memory the exact necessary things. So thank you for answering that and helping that person understand a little bit more. The next question is also from Denver. You know, we weren't actually able to get a lot of questions from out of state because I think it's probably a state initiative. So people were just like, whatever. But we did have that one from California. So from Denver, they ask, the objective of Oregon's facilitator training program is to prepare psilocybin educators. Are the backers of Initiative 58 aligned with Oregon's draft training proposal and its goals? So the amount of alignment between the Psilocybin Services Act in Oregon and 58.
we haven't openly discussed Oregon's implementation. I think the advantage that we have is that we get to really keep a very close eye on Oregon and really learn from whatever mistakes that they may have made out there during their implementation process. So, and I think that here it's going to look different.
Okay, yeah, that it's they're a little bit further along, and like you said, there's still some discussion that needs to happen after the hypothetical passing of the initiative, so that makes sense. Okay, so let's see. The next question is from Anonymous, and it says, one line in the initiative seems to be particularly concerning to people. In Section 12, 170, 106, Regulated Natural Medicine Access Program Fund, it says the department may seek and it's referring to DORA, I believe. It says the department may seek, accept, and expend any gifts, grants, donations, loan of funds, property, or any other revenue or aid in any form from the state, any state agency, any other public source, any private source, or any combination thereof, and any such monetary receipts shall be credited to the fund, and any such in-kind receipts shall be applied for the benefit of the fund. It feels as if this sets the stage for regulatory capture, when industry takes over the very government agencies that are supposed to be regulating them. Why would this initiative include the ability to donate without limit to the Department of Regulatory Affairs agencies, to DORA? And how is that in the interest of the common person?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this initiative includes the ability for DORA to seek funding from as many sources as possible to carry out what's required by the measure. Folks should consider we're not creating an additional tax burden here for Colorado residents, and that provision specifically, makes it possible to reduce the amount of funds that would be allocated from the state's general fund to get the regulated access program off the ground, and I think can really inspire more philanthropy to cover the costs of of, of the measure of implementation, and just keep in mind that, like, as Veronica was so eloquently mentioned just a little bit ago in another question, there are folks who want to see this succeed, and philanthropy has really been what's driving so much of these grassroots efforts in the first place.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the reason for this fund is specifically to help with licensing fees for people that might not have the money for it. It's also to help with, there's a lot of hurt in, I really don't like the word, but I'll use it because people have a box for it, BIPOC communities. We want to make this thing, truly want to make this thing as equitable as humanly possible. And in order to do that, in order for people who don't have money to get services that costs, we need people. There has to be a place to do it, somebody to grow the medicine, bring the medicine. Somebody's going to be needing to be a facilitator, to donate time. There's a lot of people who would love to go get to licensed, who just don't have it. We even put in there that they can't ask exorbitant rates and fees for facilitator training. But we want, the money, and that's the frustrating part, I think, for all of us, is the money for these things have got to come from somewhere. We have so many. Sorry, my cats are. Hey, and my cats are like, yeah, this gets me too. We so have this desire to want to help. We see something wrong, and we have this compassion, and we want to help. And we can get really frustrated when we don't have the time or the resources to help. And then we're kind of in this stuck place, because if somebody brings in those time and resources to help, then we wonder why they're doing it. This system is based on money. Money's an energy. It comes from somewhere. We've got to have money to eat. We can't even wipe our own butts without money, because we gotta have toilet paper. It's got to come from somewhere, and that was part of the talk behind making sure that we had this fund, is where are we going to get resources to make sure that people who otherwise wouldn't have access to these services could have access to these services. People who it's in them to want to help and heal and be a facilitator, but they don't have the I talked to somebody the other day who didn't have the $50 or whatever it was to renew their driver's license, and they want to help, and it's in them to help, but she's got 2 kids at home, and she's doing the best she can, and she wants to do better. In order to do better, we got to have some education.
Oh, Veronica, we've lost sound for you. Uh-oh. Veronica?
I'm going to text her.
Okay, yeah, we'll just take a breath break. Yeah. Veronica, your sound is out. I don't know if you can hear us. Alrighty, we'll just feel our bodies on the ground. Notice the sensation of being right here. I think maybe you've muted yourself. No? What if I do this? It seems that we've lost audio for Veronica. All right.
Maybe it's tethered to some Bluetooth headphones or something instead. That happens to me all the time.
I know.
That could work. Yeah. There we go. Now we can hear you. Yep. There
Go
you're
ahead,
back.
Kev.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We can hear you, Veronica.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, everyone. I don't know what the I was trying to help, but there's not much I can do from my end. So I do just have a follow-up question to what we were talking about there that I think is an interesting point that I wonder about as well. Would it be possible for an entity such as Compass Pathways to fiscally sponsor everyone that sits on their board of directors to open 5 healing centers each? And are there any protections against that sort of just subtle like shell company game?
I don't know why Compass Pathways would want to participate in this program. And I think it's a valid, and I'm not an attorney and an expert in that area. If Sean McAllister were here, he probably had that question.
How about now?
But you're back.
We can hear you. Hello.
Oh well.
You were on a roll. We missed like a good.
Oh, she's gone. There she is. She's back.
Just talking enough.
Damn it. That's all right.
But hopefully it was at the exact right moment.
Yes, it's in and out, but we're here now. Okay, so now it sounds like there's nothing really written in the bill that would prevent a large organization from sort of using front companies or using individuals in their board of directors, where it would sort of appear that it would appear that there are many interests involved, but really it's only one. I mean, functionally, I think the fear is like a corporatization of the psychedelic world, like we have right now, where there's Johnson & Johnson that owns everything, or Disney, just Disney with different masks. It's a single corporate entity wearing different masks and operating in that way. I think that's kind of the core of the question.
I think bad actors can always find out ways to beat the system, which is unfortunate, right? And we can't we can't track everybody. And I think with this measure, we're doing the best that we can to legislate and prevent corporate, commodified, monopolized takeover of this space. And Compass Pathways is a really good point. Folks have also heard me say this before too. And folks may disagree, and so take it or leave it. I feel like that the work that we're doing this year here in Colorado is really necessary, because we're looking at the specter of top-down, highly regulated access through FDA approval in a Western medical context of these medicines through companies like Compass Pathway. And this measure, this act, I feel in many ways can act as a shield to protect the rights of Coloradans to choose how they want to heal and work with these medicines.
Thank you for that, Kevin. Seems like we've lost Veronica again. So we'll just, it's unfortunate because the next question feels like it would maybe be right up her alley. So maybe let me ask one below that. And then if she comes back, we'll ask the question that we skipped. So the one that's here is do you have any credentialed healthcare providers on your team? I've not seen anyone come up on the NPI. My concern is that people who are not practicing mental health providers are starting the push for a medical model and making sweeping claims about mental health care that may be stated in a much different way if made by someone who understands the nuance involved in mental health treatment. So core of the question, are there mental health providers on the team?
I mean, the short answer is yes. we're currently building our coalition. It's going to be a broad community of individuals who have experience in a lot of areas, including folks who do have mental health experience as therapists, as guides. And then we have an incredible campaign staff that we're just starting to build. Now that we have our campaign manager here on board, so we're certainly talking with a lot of individuals, therapists, physicians, folks who are advising and guiding us on this process.
Alrighty, thank you, Kevin. So we'll move on to question. Veronica, we had a question that we saved for you because you were gone. I figured it might be better just to ask it with you here. That question is also from the Denver chapter. We know that psychedelic spaces are predominantly white male dominated. I would like to know, how does your team prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusivity? If so, how are you doing so? How are you working directly with people of color, BIPOC communities outside of yourselves to ensure people from marginalized communities are involved in helping steer your political campaign? What are you doing to ensure that these licenses will be available to people of color? Since the licenses are opened up to out-of-state individuals, how will you ensure that legalized access will be available to all and serve people in disproportionately impacted communities and Black and Brown communities?
Yes. So whoever asked this question, or the people that entered into this question, I appreciate the asking of this question because it triggered the hell out of me. You know, I work every day among people of all colors. I take a lot from there are so many different perspectives on this. The conversations that we have on the steering committee, the understanding of where we're coming from, the populations that we're working with, the populations that have a need for this. But this question I get asked a lot. It's how are you helping? How are you helping BIPOC community? And one of the questions that I actually started asking is, the way that we really help each other is by each individual reaching out and doing everything they can. There are so many things that we can work on. We can work on healing through psychedelics, but wherever we look, there is a fight to be had. We got clean water, clean oceans, animals. How are we treating the animals? The population dying of the fish, the trash, the air, the pollution, the gas and coal. Like, there, you can go into your kitchen and find 20 world problems right there. I wanted to use this opportunity to send a really big invite out to everyone to please go into these communities and see what is needed for yourselves. Ask what is needed for yourselves. Ask what you can do. Even a simple thing of picking up trash on the side of the road. I found this a personal trigger for me because we used to volunteer at a homeless shelter for teens to make sure that we prepare meals for them and things like this. And at the time, I was really reaching out to, people more of my own color. In all honesty, understanding the hardships of that. And then I started to see what that was doing to some of the other kids there. Why they weren't getting that time and those conversations, and that.
Oh no, it's happened again. Oh man, Veronica, hey, hold on. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Oh no, Veronica. We lost audio.
I'm actively texting her as we speak.
Oh man, such an unfortunate time for that to go out. But a lot of passion there, and
Yeah. And while we're getting her back, I'd like to actually read the part of the measure where we've written in how this measure is going to make this accessible to our marginalized communities and how we've given thought to this.
please.
Is that cool? Okay. Just going to bring it up here. So again, for folks who want to look at the measure, it's on page. Oh, wait a second.
apologize. I don't know if it's my buzziness, my energy, or whatever, or what it might be. Doing the best I can.
That's okay. We're glad you're back. I think maybe. Oh no. There's still no audio. Well, maybe restart and plug in headphones, and while Veronica figures that out, Kevin, you could read the measure.
Yeah, so this is on page 8, and it's under the Regulated Access Program section. Well, yeah, it is on page 8, isn't it? I'm sorry, starting on page 7. DORA, the regulatory agency, has to establish procedures, policies, and programs to ensure the regulatory access program is equitable and inclusive, and to promote the licensing of and provision of natural medicine services to folks from communities that have been disproportionately harmed by high rates of controlled substances arrests, to persons who face barriers to access to healthcare, to persons who have a traditional or indigenous history with natural medicines, or to folks who are veterans that include, but are not limited to. So here are the systems that need to be created: reduced fees for licensure and facilitator training, incentivizing the provision of these services at a reduced cost to low-income individuals, and incentivizing geographic and cultural diversity in licensing, and the availability and provision of natural medicine services. And then every year there needs to be an annual process and review to see how effective these policies are and if they're actually making the intended impact, which is to make it accessible to the folks who need it the most, which in most cases are folks who can't necessarily, afford, high costs here. And then one last thing to note in terms of how, when the access program receives initial funding from the state's general fund, that initial funding has to go to 3 areas. The first area is, what are these educational programs? How are we further educating Colorado residents? The second area is basically convening the Natural Medicine Advisory Board. And the third area is focusing specifically on that provision I just read, which is to make this equitable and accessible.
Thank you for reading that, Kevin, and welcome back, Veronica. I think we can probably hear you now. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that, the BIPOC question?
Don't know where I got cut off, but thank you for the question. And I really do. Like we are extremely aware, myself included, having been a victim of race crimes myself for quite a few number of years there. This is something that is personal and very close to home, which is why I wanted to use the opportunity to make a call out. Please, guys, please, what are you guys doing? Each and every one of you that is listening today, what are you doing to support these communities? And whatever you're doing, I hope that you really are proud of what you're doing and you're happy with yourselves because you're walking the walk, and you're talking the talk, and that it is so needed. I would not be here today if it wasn't for an Indigenous Scholarship Fund. It was still really, really expensive, but I would not have my education. I wouldn't have been able to help in the areas in which I had been able to help without that ripple effect. The woman that gave me the opportunity to rent my office for cheap because she wanted to support women entrepreneurs was another ripple. And I really, really am begging you guys to be that ripple from a place of power, of love, of goodness, not from a place of fear or hurt or guilt or shame. Please use that ripple of goodness, and not for notoriety, but just because you can. If you have an opportunity, seize it and help, guys, because it is so needed on so many levels in this world.
Beautiful, powerful, passionate call. Appreciate you sharing that with us and bringing it back down to that human level, the place that we all share. Thank you, Veronica. We've got just another minute. I want to squeeze one more question in here in this last minute if we can, and then we can go ahead and close. What do you know about Initiative 61? And how does Natural Medicine and Health Act differ from Initiative 61? If both of these related initiatives gather enough signatures, then they could hypothetically both be on the ballot. And if they both pass in the general election, what conflicts might arise in the interpretation and application of the statutes? Interesting potential situation.
with only a minute left here, right? You know, both measures currently coexist. You know, if both measures appear on the ballot, I would vote yes on both of them. I signed 61's petition yesterday. Personally, you know, I can't say for sure what kind of conflict may arise in the implementation process, and that's why it's important that, you know, come November 9th, folks are ready to get to work, because that's when the real work actually begins. And it's really important for us to, you know, start considering what the future looks like here, and to do your research, read the personal use section. It's only a couple pages of our measure. That'll really outline the differences and all the thought that we put into protecting individual rights, especially when compared to Initiative 61.
And I make the same call. You know, read both, vote for both. You know, the writers are good people. It's a hell of an opportunity, and I have a tremendous amount of faith. I truly believe in my bone of bones that everything happens for a reason. Second spiritual law: nothing happens for no reason. We got to be awake. We got to take action. But nothing happens for no reason. And we got 2 initiatives for a reason. So let's sign both petitions and let's vote on both. We'll be okay. We'll be good. We're so taken care of and we are so loved.
Alrighty, thank you both. With that, we're out of time. I want to give you both the opportunity to plug anything that you may have coming up. Do you have any last plugs or mentions that you'd like to get in before we close the stream?
Vote in November.
Get registered to vote. Vote in November. At naturalmedicinecolorado.org. Around June 1st is when we're going to be launching our volunteer leaders program. So anyone who is listening, who knows how to get in touch with me and would like to be involved or learn more, hit me up. Y'all know how to get me.
Yeah. And give and grow, wash and repeat. Find awareness, spread awareness. If there is no awareness, there is no choice. If there is no choice, then nothing will change.
Alrighty, naturalmedicinecolorado.org. We are with Psychedelic Club, psychedeliclub.com to find out more about us and our activities, or to start a chapter, go to psychedeliclub.com. Kevin, Veronica, this has been really lovely. Thank you for meeting with our community, being willing to be held to the fire a little bit and answer some of these tough questions, and just show up in front of this audience and bringing yourselves as human beings to be with us as human beings. Really, thank you, and honor both of you. Big gratitude to everybody that showed up. Thank you for being here. It's been so lovely. And until next time, friends.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.